Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon,
Mister.
Afternoon, Mister.
How's your day?
Good.
Okay, first of all, I will check the attendance for today's meetings. So I want you to turn on your camera. Okay. Before we start the lesson, do you remember the material from the previous meeting? It's about poem and poetry, prose, right?
Yes, right, sir.
Yeah, it's about poem. So I want to ask you something about today's material. Have you heard texts about historical recounts, biographies, folk tale, and short story?
Oh yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Yes, I have, sir.
Yes. From some of the texts that I mentioned earlier, do you know what kind of text is it?
I think it's narrative text, sir.
Okay, that's a good answer. It's a narrative text. Here I will tell you about the learning objective at today's meeting. The first one is students are able to identify the different type of narrative text. The second one, students are able to identify the structure of narrative text. And the third one is students are able to write narrative text. Narrative text. We are going to discuss about narrative text. Do you know about narrative text? Riva, do you know about narrative text?
I know, Mister.
What it is?
Narrative text is about a text that talking about something in specific.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else know about the definition of narrative text, Aldi? Or
Yes,
Reza?
sir. Okay, so narrative text is an imaginative story which is aimed to entertain the readers.
Okay. And Reza, maybe you can. Do you know about the narrative text definitions?
Yeah, for me, narrative text is simply any piece of text that tells a story.
That was a pretty good answer. Actually, narrative text includes any type of writing that relates a series of events and includes both fiction and non-fiction. Both form tells stories that use imaginative language and express emotion, often through the use imagery, metaphors, and symbols. The narrative text divided into two. They are fiction and non-fiction. A fictional narrative is story that is not based on real events or real people, and non-fiction narrative is true story written in the style of a fiction novel. The narrative non-fiction genre contains a factual prose that written in compelling way fact told as a story. Like that explanation, what do you think? The example of narrative text, narrative fiction texts. Hannah, can you answer this question?
Yes, sir. I think it's about short story, folktale, legends, fables, and so on.
Okay, that's a correct. And next, what do you think about non-fiction narrative text? Inda, can you answer?
Yes, sir. So I think is biography, historical recount, letter, news article, and so on.
Okay, that's a good answer. And here, I have a structure about the fiction and non-fiction narrative text. The fiction is orientation, complication, resolution, and reorientation. And the non-fiction is description, sequence, and others, compare and contrast, cause effects, and problem solution. So to find out whether the narrative text is fiction or non-fiction, you can identify narrative text with these points. And this is the example of the narrative text. Please read carefully, because I will give you a couple of minutes to identify the outline of the story, and ask you, I will give you 3 minutes to read this text. Time is up. Finish.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First, what type of narrative text is it? And why?
Sorry?
Fiction or non-fiction? What type of narrative-
Fiction,
Oh, fiction. Why?
because it is about Pinocchio.
Yeah, it's fiction because the text is a folktale story which is included in fiction. So I have a several question about this text. The first question is the character in the story where Keisha, can you answer this question? The character of the story in the story.
Pinocchio and Geppetto.
Okay. And the second one is the story started blah blah blah.
Geppetto really wanted a boy, but his wife has been died for a long time ago.
Okay, that's good. And Vanessa, can you explain the problem and the climax of the story?
The problem is because Pinocchio felt bored, so he went home late, and Geppetto worried about him. I guess.
Yes.
And the climax of the story, Pinocchio got caught by thieves, and the thief was the owner of the circus, and all. And at the end, Pinocchio become a slave for the circus.
Okay, that's good. And the two last question, maybe Reja, can you answer? The question is the resolution and the message of the story. What is
Okay,
the
the resolution of the story was Pinocchio finally could get out from the circus. He went to home, but Geppetto wasn't on there. He found Geppetto at the sea. He had the same accident like Geppetto. He met Geppetto in Bohel's Thomas. They got out from his Thomas by made of fire. They went home back together. In the end, they live happily forever after. And the conclusion or the message of the story is people will be rewarded for being brave, loyal, and honest.
Okay, that's good. So, for the assignment, I want you find a non-fiction narrative text and then write down the structure contained in the text and explain orally. I will give you 30 minutes to do the text. And you can present it orally. Time is up. Finish. Okay, who can be the first to present? Riva, maybe?
Okay, sir.
Yes.
The narrative text is about Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson is a former coach of Manchester United with the many titles he gave to the club from Manchester. He has been named the most successful coach in Premier League to date. The title served to Alex Ferguson was obtained at Buckingham Palace in 1999.
Okay, that's enough. And I think it's enough for today. Any question about this material?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you for today's meeting. See you next time.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.